Elaine McClellan. I'm the director at Crossroads here at the University of Alabama, and I have had the privilege of working closely with JacksonHarris in multiple contexts since he came to the university as a freshman in New College. I continue to marvel at his talents. There's a different one every time I turn around. It turns out he can sing and draw, in addition to being an incredible communicator. So what I have noticed is that whether he is talking to a large audience or working very humbly as he does whenever he's helping us do things behind the scenes to make great things happen, Jackson is making us all believe in things that we thought we couldn't do. So as a fellow Alabamian, it does my heart good when I hear Jackson say that he wants to stay here in Alabama. I know our state has a lot of room to grow, but when I think of JacksonHarris and that he came from Alabama, I know we are already off to a good start.
Okay, so I'm Jackson. I study community development here at the university through New College, and this is me if I'd drawn myself with a Sharpie. I grew up in a small town in southeastern Alabama, way down yonder on the Chattahoochee. It's known as Eufaula, Alabama, and I had a kind of all-American growing up experience. It was pretty great. I had the kind of life where I could ride my bike back and forth in front of the house with a Pokemon card stuck in the spokes to make it sound like a motorcycle, or I'd play in the woods for hours on end making believe I was a cowboy or an astronaut or a medieval knight or something to that effect. And in fact, sometimes I'd get so far deep into the woods that I was out of sight of the house. And let me just tell you that when you're in the imaginative state of facing down a grizzly bear or alien military forces, or a fire-breathing dragon about to turn you into ash, nothing gets you out of that state as quickly as your mom stepping onto the back porch and saying, "Jack! Jack! Where'd you go?" Which happened a lot. And my mom would be calling me back to the house to do things that were not nearly as fun, like take the trash out and clean the house or do my homework or something like that. But it didn't matter how loud she was hollering. When you're faced with the choice of defending innocent villagers from this sort of monster, or listening to your mom, you listen to your mom. Okay? Because when mama calls, you just have to come running. And that's something I learned growing up. It was a good place to live. I played Little League Baseball, I sang in the church choir, I was in the Boy Scouts. When I got to high school, I joined the FFA, which is the Future Farmers of America. And let's be honest, my life up until this point has looked a lot like a collaboration between Norman Rockwell and the Dixie Chicks. But I loved it, and my hometown of Eufaula, Alabama provided a background for that sort of growing up experience, which was fantastic. That being said, Eufaula is not perfect. It doesn't have a Chili's. But beyond that, a lot of the people that I graduated with would literally laugh out loud at the idea of ever returning home. And you may have noticed the same thing about your own friend group or our generation in general. Not only would they laugh at the idea of going back, sometimes home is almost thought of as a dirty word, right? If anybody does end up back home after college. Conversations like this can be heard everywhere, and you've probably heard them. Maybe you're local with Chew and Chat or something like that. Somebody will say, "Did you hear about Christine?" "Oh my gosh, yes." "Isn't that so sad?" "Yes, she had so much potential." "I know, and then she came home." What is that? Why is it that home is a dirty word? Why is it that the thought of returning home back to the regions we came from is always near the bottom of our list of options after we graduate from college? Why is it that we equate going home with failure? I think, at least recently for our generation, perhaps some of it comes from the fact that a lot of our peers were affected by when the job market closed them out in 2008, which means they were forced by economics to cycle from their college graduation right back to the small bedroom in their parents' house and bagging groceries at the Piggly Wiggly. So I understand that that probably colors a lot of the way we think about going home. But tonight I'm not talking about being forced to go home. I'm talking about something radically different, which is making the conscious choice to go home as a way to pursue our dreams, our careers, and our passions. Which is a pretty exciting thought to me. So let's move forward. As many of you may or may not know, there's this thing called urban sprawl. And for inner city communities, urban sprawl may look a lot like people moving away and deserting entire neighborhoods to move to where new things are being developed outside of metro areas. Take Detroit, for example. That's a perfect example. And in rural areas, urban sprawl means the swallowing up of potential farmland, a rise in prices that become unsustainable for food producers, or just kind of the erasure of small town, Main Street America culture into bigger suburbs and that sort of idea. This is where brain drain comes in. It's another side effect of urban sprawl. And it's when intelligent, educated, talented folks from both the rural areas and the inner city move to these suburban areas for more jobs, peaceful neighborhoods, and better schools for their families, plus Outback steakhouses. This is what we call the suburbs. And year after year, these people move from these places to the suburbs. Now we know this. We know this because in rural areas, for instance, the Wall Street Journal reported in 2013 that 60% of rural counties shrank in population, which is up from 50% in 2009 and 40% in the 1990s. So we know that rural America has been shrinking for a while and it's getting worse. You see, what happens is when the people from the inner city and the rural towns, these talented, educated folks, when they move to the suburbs in pursuit of these perceived opportunities, what they're doing is leaving those communities behind that grew and developed them. Which means that when we as a society continue to place more value or say that success is defined by a student going to college, getting a degree, and moving away from home, what we're doing is encouraging an annual gross loss of investment for these communities every time graduation caps are tossed into the air. It'd be a lot like if you spent an incredible amount of time and energy and wealth preparing a horse for the Kentucky Derby. Race day comes, you're sipping on your mint julep, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, some other jockey sprints up, jumps on your horse, and wins the race by 30 yards. Now that's the kind of heartbreaking loss of investment we're talking about here. These home communities prepare people to do awesome things. And then graduation day comes, they move off, and they change the world somewhere else. Now that wouldn't be a big deal if our generation moved around after college and then equally redistributed ourselves after college. But we don't do that. Just like in the Wall Street Journal statistic, we know that when people leave these areas, they don't go back. In fact, they go to certain places in our country and not others. And that wouldn't be a big idea if the only thing that people in rural areas did was sit on their front porch and drink lemonade, which is what a lot of people think we do. But in fact, it's the areas that are hardest hit by brain drain that provide our food sources, our energy sources, our mineral mining, and manufacturing in this country. Not to mention, it's these places that provide well over their fair share of fighting men and women for our nation's defense. Which means that our country literally cannot afford either our culture or our economy for these communities to continue to dry up, for these communities to continue to suffer this sort of incredible loss of investment every year. So what does this mean for us? Right? So what does this mean for us tonight here at Tide Talks, University of Alabama students? First, it means that, unfortunately, a lot of our communities may be some of the ones affected. But at the very least, it requires of all of us to recognize that we have a responsibility to at least seriously consider the thought of returning back to the regions from whence we came, to reinvest ourselves, everything that we've gained, our talents, our education, our creativity, to reinvest ourselves in those ways back into the communities that invested in us first. It's at least something to consider, this idea of community. And it may bucket conventional thought, but our generation already includes the idea of community when we're planning for our future, especially after college. In fact, in her book, Live First, Work Second, author Rebecca Ryan, which I obviously did the illustrations for, In her book, Live First, Work Second, she points out that 3 out of 4 young Americans, and this is people under the age of 28, already consider where they want to live and then consider the kind of job they want to have, which is completely backwards from what most people think, which is college students try their hardest to find a job and then go move to that place. So congratulations to everyone in the room and in my generation. We've already completed step 1 of my life goals, which is care about where you live plus what you do. Go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back. You did an awesome job at that. It's step 2 that becomes a little more tricky. Step 2 is care about where other people live and where you're needed the most. And there's probably some seniors and juniors in the room that are like, no, stop complicating. I'm already confused enough. Now, Forbes has a list of America's 15 cities for young professionals. BuzzFeed has a list of 14 flourishing cities that recent grads should call home. And the Daily Beast has a list of 25 top cities for recent grads. Now, for some, these lists will be just fine. For those that wish to graduate from college and take a job, these lists will do. But for those who wish to leave college and create jobs, these lists aren't enough. In fact, for the people in this room tonight, these lists aren't working. For the people who don't ask what already is and instead ask themselves the question, what ought to be, these lists don't matter at all. Because we live in a time today where technological advancement allows almost anybody anywhere in this country to be connected with the knowledge and the capital they need to start and grow a business. Which means that we no longer have to go to the big cities in order to find big success. We can go where we're needed the most. It means that now the responsibility is completely on us. Will we choose to follow the path that's laid out for us by Forbes and BuzzFeed and the Daily Beast, or will we go where it's harder, where it's more difficult, where it's more challenging, but where we're needed the most? That's the question. Now, some of y'all are like, this guy is off his rocker. I'm not going back home. And for some of y'all are like, well, I moved around a lot, don't really have a place I feel like I call home, and that's fine. Take mine. I give it to you free of charge. If you're looking for a place right now as you plan for your future, it doesn't matter exactly where you come from. It matters where you're needed. Let's take a little poll here. So when my parents came to the University of Alabama, out-of-state students were not nearly as common as they are today. And when my grandfathers came to the capstone, an out-of-state student was a rarity. If you're from in-state here tonight, if you're a student who was born and raised in Alabama, go ahead and give us a round of applause. Just clap your hands. If you are an out-of-state student here tonight, clap your hands. All right. We got you. It's obvious that shifts in student body dynamics have already made an impact on our campus and have the possibility of affecting our state at large. If you're not already planning to go somewhere, if you're not racing back home to go serve the communities you came from, why not sticking around here for a while? I know Alabama's got its problems. We got a lot of them. But those problems, those challenges present all of us with a unique opportunity. Lots of opportunities. Chief among them, the opportunity to feel like your life's work, your best years, are being invested in the people and the communities that need it the most. If you want to work on environmental justice, come to Alabama. If you want to become a part of the state government that desperately needs effective leaders, come to Alabama. If you want to work on issues of race, of gender, of equity, of law, of food, of religion, of freedom, come to Alabama. Come home to Alabama, because we really need you. One of my favorite Alabamians is Coach Paul Bear Bryant. Is that in common with anybody in here? Now, Coach Bryant, although he's in the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, isn't a native Alabamian. In fact, he comes from a little small farming town in Arkansas called Mora Bottom. He played for the Fordyce, Arkansas Redbugs in high school. And then he came to the capstone on a football scholarship. After he graduated, he had a coaching career that included Maryland and Kentucky and Texas A&M. And while he was at A&M in College Station, he was kicking it. He had built up a program that could beat Texas, their in-state rival. He was winning Southwestern Conference championships, and he was having a lot of success laid out in front of him. And then he gets a call from the University of Alabama. And the University of Alabama football program, Dixie's football pride, in the 3 years prior to Coach Bryant arriving, had gone 4 wins, 24 losses, and 2 ties. And then Coach Bryant shows up. When reporters asked Coach Bryant, why on earth would you go from where you had it good, where you had it easy, where you had already built up a considerable amount of success, why would you go from there, where expectations and possibilities were high, to that place that's no longer relevant? To that place that was once okay, but is now way behind the times. To that place where all hope is lost. Why would you go to Alabama? And I'd be willing to bet a lot of us in the room have been asked that same question before already in life. Why would you go to Alabama? And to that, Coach Bryant famously said, Mama called. And when Mama calls, you just have to come running. There are communities all over this country that are in need of creative individuals who think differently than everybody before them. There are communities that need teachers and healthcare providers and engineers and community leaders. They need us. And when it comes down to it, when we plan our futures, I think we all owe it to those communities to at least listen very closely, because Mama might be calling us home too. You see, home is where the need is. And that's my revolutionary idea. Thank y'all.